Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. I'm Brennan and today we are looking at a massive trade that just went down. The Winnipeg Jets and the Columbus Blue Jackets have exchanged their star young players in Patrik Laine and Pierre Luc-Dubois. Now obviously there are some other pieces that went along with this trade, and this is arguably the biggest trade we've seen maybe since Weber for Subban. There has been some big trades since then, but this trade just feels massive. Two stars going to two different teams, you don't really see trades like this often, and it's going to have huge implications for the future of these teams and the future of the NHL. So we are going to start off with what the Columbus Blue Jackets got. Now, the Columbus Blue Jackets got Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic out of this trade. Laine comes with a 26% retained salary, so Columbus does save some cap money there. And getting Jack Roslovic, he's a restricted free agent right now, so I imagine that they're going to sign him to an extension. Getting Roslovic gives Columbus an actual NHL-ready center, and even though their center depth really isn't that strong right now, Roslovic might end up being projected as the number one guy there. That being said, Roslovic is still a center that has that top six potential, and I think this is a good pickup for the Columbus Blue Jackets. But the obvious big name here, and I think the biggest name out of this trade, is Patrik Laine. The Columbus Blue Jackets getting Patrik Laine is a massive deal for them. This gives them an offensive superstar, one unlike they haven't had since about Rick Nash, maybe Artemi Panarin. So Patrik Laine going to Columbus is going to give them some true offensive star power. Patrik Laine is a guy who's expected to be competing for the Rocket Richard Trophy, and obviously is a very highly touted young player, going second overall in the 2016 NHL entry draft. He has had a down year these past few years with the Winnipeg Jets, but part of that can be attributed to, quite frankly, him not wanting to play in Winnipeg. In his first 2 years, he was sensational, having a 30-goal season in his rookie year, and then a 40-goal season in his sophomore year. Laine's big, he's talented, he can score. He's kind of a complete offensive threat. The problem with Laine is that he sometimes looks lazy out there and isn't that responsible defensively, which when you're playing for a head coach like John Tortorella, that could end up being a problem. I'm not sure how well Laine is going to fit in Columbus's more defense-oriented system, and it's definitely going to make for an interesting story. That being said, Patrik Laine and his addition to the Columbus Blue Jackets should be very exciting for Blue Jackets fans and should make them feel a lot better about what they gave up in this deal. I do think that Laine still has the potential to be a perennial 50-goal scorer, and likely does have a Rocket Richard in his future someday. So Patrik Laine could end up being a massive piece for the Columbus Blue Jackets for years to come, as long as he can fit in well in John Tortorella's system. This is where, the Tortorella effect really needs to he needs to learn how to deal with star players a bit better when it comes to star forwards. We know Tortorella is good with some more, grunt forwards, and then obviously the big physical blue liners, but Tortorella really needs to handle Patrik Laine better than he handled Pierre Luc-Dubois, because if, Laine wants out of Columbus in 2 years, then this is going to reflect really poorly on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now heading over to the Winnipeg side of things. Now for starters, Winnipeg did end up getting a 2022 third round pick. This is kind of just a sweetener, kind of just evens out the value a little bit. Not really a big deal there, but the piece that they got obviously being Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now Dubois did request a trade from the Columbus Blue Jackets prior to the start of the season, and most recently was benched in his last game as the Columbus Blue Jackets, only having about 3 minutes and 20 seconds of ice time. So Dubois is a really good young center. That being said, there is questions about his attitude, as this whole situation with Columbus really hasn't been handled quite well. He hasn't played his best game, and it's clear that he kind of just wants to play in a big market, and Winnipeg isn't necessarily the biggest market. Yes, it is a hockey market with devoted fans. That being said, the population of the city is actually smaller than Columbus itself. But I do think that Dubois will probably be happy, going to Winnipeg, a more traditional hockey market, and he should fit in there well as a second-line center. So having Pierre-Luc Dubois as your second-line center, Mark Scheifele as your first, and Paul Stastny as your third, that's some of the best center depth in the entire NHL, and arguably the best center depth in the Canadian division as far as 1 through 3 goes. The Canadian division does have some really good center depth all around, so that can definitely be up for debate in the comments below, but regardless. So I do think that getting Dubois for Winnipeg is a big deal. This also, I think, has an effect on Cole Perfetti, their, highly touted young prospect. I think Perfetti now probably projects as a left winger, since you're not going to want Perfetti being a third-line center, or Dubois or Scheifele. So either way, Winnipeg is going to be stacked at center for years to come, and that is the good part of this deal. That being said, I don't think Dubois is quite on the level of Patrik Laine, although he should fit in well in Winnipeg's system, and he is projected to be a number one center, so having having two, potential #1 centers, Mark Scheifele already being that, and Dubois definitely having that ceiling, that's going to be very deadly for Winnipeg. That being said, it's kind of the same for Dubois as it is for Laine and Columbus, in that hopefully Dubois doesn't want out in 2 years. Obviously, these players are not, or they weren't happy in their situations, and that can, sometimes we see players that they'll go to a team, they'll play there a couple years, and then they want out, and then the same deal. So if Dubois is happy in Winnipeg and he can sign a long-term extension once his contract is up, that is going to look better for the Winnipeg Jets. It's just going to be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. Now, obviously, Dubois is not going to be able to play for Winnipeg for at least 14 days, since entering Canada, he has to go through the 14-day quarantine process, but this isn't necessarily a big deal for Winnipeg, as they already lost Patrik Laine for the next presumably 2 weeks anyways, since Patrik Laine is on the injured reserve. So that was the smart side for Winnipeg when it comes to this deal. They were going to miss Laine anyway, so at least getting Dubois, now the Laine situation is done, now the team can focus on playing hockey, and same can be said for Columbus. Now that this, cloud of trade rumors and speculation, this is not hanging over the team anymore, and I think that's probably best for both sides. Now it's kind of kicking a can down the road. Both these guys don't have a lot of term left on their deal, so we're going to see what's going to happen when it comes up for contract negotiations again. But I would imagine that these two young players give their new teams a fair shot, and hopefully both these guys are going to be able to fit in well. As far as an overall, kind of review on the trade goes, I honestly think Columbus really wins this. Giving up both Laine and Roslovic, I think, is a pretty big blow to Winnipeg's lineup. Yes, Roslovic wasn't playing, but that being said, he is still a good young player with some potential, and to me, I think Patrik Laine is the big name out of this deal. Obviously, Pierre-Luc Dubois is getting the headlines right now because there was so much speculation over where he would go, but now the fact that Patrik Laine has been traded too, it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone. This is a massive trade, and I think Columbus probably ends up winning this, at least on paper. Time will tell how Laine will actually perform in Columbus. Like I said earlier, his style of game isn't necessarily ideal for John Tortorella's system, but I think Tortorella needs to find a way to work around that, since Patrik Laine has the potential to be a superstar player, a 50-goal scorer, and he should be the piece forward for this franchise, heading forward. So I still think Columbus probably needs to pick up another center in the offseason now that they lost Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was supposed to be that big center for them. But getting Patrik Laine back, I think Columbus definitely made the best out of a bad situation, and I think won this trade. Winnipeg, getting Pierre-Luc Dubois is a good piece, but giving up Laine, this doesn't really reflect well. We've always seen rumors about players wanting out of Winnipeg. We saw it with Trouba, Myers, and everything. And even though, some of that has worked out pretty well for Winnipeg, like, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want to keep Tyler Myers right now. But that being said, losing Laine, he was supposed to be a massive piece for them, and I'm sure a lot of Jets fans are pretty upset about that. That being said, Jets fans should be excited about the addition of Pierre-Luc Dubois. He is a really good young player. He should fit in well, and it gives the Jets some of the best center depth in the entire NHL. The Jets are still loaded at forward. Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, Nikolai Ehlers, and now Pierre-Luc Dubois. So the Winnipeg Jets are still fine. That being said, I do think that Columbus is the winner of this trade. Not necessarily by much, because you do have two disgruntled players that time will tell how they will fit in their new systems. Either way, this is very exciting news, and I'm sure a lot of hockey fans were patiently awaiting this situation to kind of end, since a lot of teams were interested in Pierre-Luc Dubois. Obviously, as a Montreal fan, there was plenty of rumors about Dubois to Montreal, and now I'm kind of glad that it's over and everybody can just kind of breathe and settle. Dubois to Winnipeg, and then Laine to Columbus, so those two stories are kind of settled, and now everybody can just focus on playing hockey. It's going to be interesting to see how these trades work out for these two teams. Columbus is struggling a little bit to start the year, so maybe, Laine coming in whenever he gets healthy and has gone through a 7-day quarantine period for the United States, maybe that's going to be able to turn their franchise around right now. And as far as Winnipeg goes, they're off to a good start, and I would imagine that adding Dubois is probably going to make them better once he slots into their lineup. Laine did have a, one good game with Winnipeg, but that being said, they've looked just fine without him in lineup, and I think they're still going to be a great team moving forward. But that does it for today's video. Please leave your comments and thoughts about this trade in the comments below. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.